The unplanned magic you didn't see coming happened on a day that was supposed to be ordinary. Lena and Miu were scheduled for a simple promotional shoot. Nothing dramatic, nothing emotional, nothing out of the ordinary. Just them, the cameras, and a quiet studio where everything usually ran according to plan. But that day, something shifted. It began with a small mistake. Miu arrived later than usual, looking apologetic as she entered the studio, brushing a strand of hair behind her ear. She bowed quickly, apologizing to the staff, and while everyone assured her it was fine, Lena noticed something else. There was a heaviness in Miu's expression, a mixture of exhaustion and something unspoken. Lena didn't comment, but her eyes lingered longer than necessary, silently taking in every detail. The director gathered them for the briefing, explaining the concept of the shoot. Simple interactions, soft expressions, nothing complicated. But he emphasized something: everything needed to feel genuine. Real emotion, real connection, real warmth. Little did he know that he was about to get exactly that, just not in the way he planned. During the first round of shots, the energy was steady but not exceptional. Lena followed directions perfectly. Miu tried her best to keep up, but something felt slightly off. You could see it in the way Miu's smiles didn't reach her eyes, or the way her movements felt a little too controlled. The crew noticed it, the director noticed it, and Lena felt it the most. Then came the moment that changed everything. One of the assistants accidentally dropped a prop, a glass ornament meant for the background. It shattered loudly, making Miu flinch. Just for a split second, Miu's mask fell. Her expression tightened, and she stepped back, her breath catching faintly. The room went quiet. Lena didn't hesitate. She moved toward Miu gently but with an undeniable sense of urgency. She reached her hand out, touching Miu's arm, not as a co-star, not as a colleague, but as someone who cared deeper than anyone could explain. Miu looked up at her, surprised, as if she didn't expect comfort in that moment. What happened next wasn't planned. It wasn't scripted. It wasn't part of the shoot. Miu stepped forward, closing the distance between them, and leaned slightly toward Lena. Not quite an embrace, not quite a collapse, but something in between. Something unspoken, something fragile, something so real that the entire studio froze. Lena raised her other hand instinctively, touching the back of Miu's shoulder, grounding her without saying a word. The photographer, stunned, lifted the camera quietly. Click, click, click. Each shot captured something raw: Miu's vulnerability, Lena's steady warmth, the quiet moment where two people found each other in a place where they weren't expected to. The director didn't call cut. No one moved. Everyone just watched. Miu inhaled softly, regaining herself, but she didn't step away. And Lena didn't let go. Their eyes met. Slow, soft, and full of meaning, and that was the moment the photographer captured the picture that would soon explode across the internet. The moment where Lena's thumb gently brushed across Miu's sleeve. The moment where Miu looked up with the smallest, most fragile smile. The moment that wasn't meant for cameras, but somehow belonged to them. When they finally stepped back, Miu whispered a quiet apology, but Lena shook her head with a reassuring smile. The kind of smile that says, "I'm here. Don't worry." And for the first time that day, Miu truly smiled, not the practiced one, not the polite one, but something real. Something honest. The shoot continued, but something had changed between them. The distance that usually existed melted away. Their movements became more in sync, their expressions softer, their energy warmer. Lena would adjust Miu's hair without being asked. Miu would laugh quietly when Lena whispered something under her breath. The rest of the crew watched, silently exchanging glances, knowing they were witnessing something no script could recreate. By the time the final photos were taken, the atmosphere had shifted completely. The last shot the photographer captured, Lena looking at Miu like she was the only person in the room, and Miu leaning closer with that same soft, genuine smile, became the highlight of the entire project. Later, when the photos were released, fans went into complete meltdown. They replayed every frame, analyzed every expression, zoomed in on every hand touch, gathered every reaction. Everyone had the same question. If this wasn't scripted, then what are we seeing here? And the truth was simple. It was magic. Unplanned, unexpected, undeniable magic. A moment that showed the world a side of Lena and Miu that no interview, no press release, and no performance had ever captured. A moment that belonged to them. A moment that, once seen, could never be forgotten. What happened after the shoot was just as surprising as the moment itself. When the director finally called it a wrap, the crew began packing up, but Lena and Miu lingered near the set, neither of them in a rush to leave. The energy between them had shifted so noticeably that even the lighting assistant whispered to another staff member, asking if something finally happened. Lena stayed close, watching Miu with quiet concern, as if she wasn't convinced the younger woman had fully recovered from earlier. Miu pretended to busy herself with her phone, but it was obvious she felt Lena's gaze. After a moment, she looked up, giving a small, shy smile that almost looked like gratitude she didn't know how to express. They walked together toward the hallway, and as they reached the corner where the dressing rooms were, Lena spoke first. Her voice was soft, calm, patient. She asked if Miu was doing okay, not as a colleague checking in, but as someone who truly cared. Someone who saw past the polished exterior. Miu hesitated, as if debating whether she should pretend everything was fine. But something about Lena's eyes, steady, genuine, and unfiltered, made her drop the act. She admitted it had been a hard morning, that she hadn't slept well, that she'd been overwhelmed lately, juggling tight schedules and pressure she didn't want anyone to see. She said she didn't mean for it to show, but Lena smiled gently and told her she didn't have to hide everything all the time. And then, for a second time that day, something unexpected happened. Miu's voice wavered. Not much, just a slight tremor. But Lena noticed instantly. She stepped a little closer, not touching her yet, but close enough that Miu could feel her presence. A quiet anchor in the middle of everything. Miu lowered her head, almost embarrassed. She said she hated being emotional on set, hated when people saw her vulnerable. But Lena shook her head and whispered that vulnerability wasn't weakness, that sometimes it showed more strength than pretending to be okay. Those words hit Miu harder than she expected. You could see it in the way her shoulders relaxed, in the way her breathing steadied, in the way her eyes softened as she looked up at Lena again. And there it was, that look, the same look captured in the photos, the look that fans would soon obsess over. Soft, warm, real. Meanwhile, in another corner of the studio, the photographer was scrolling through the shots, his first instinct telling him the best images weren't the ones they posed for. They were the unplanned ones, the ones that weren't supposed to exist. He showed a few previews to the director, who reacted the same way, stunned silence, followed by the quiet realization that they had captured something extremely rare. The director leaned in, whispering, "This isn't acting. This is something else." The photographer nodded, not daring to put a label on it. Outside in the hallway, Rena finally asked Miu if she wanted a few minutes alone. But to Lena's surprise, Miu shook her head and said she didn't want to be by herself. Not right now. The admission was soft, almost fragile, but Lena understood immediately. So instead of parting ways, Lena guided her gently toward the back exit where a quiet courtyard sat behind the studio. It was an area staff used for breaks, surrounded by greenery, away from the noise inside. Miu followed without hesitation. When they stepped outside, the air was cool, calm, and far from the busy atmosphere of the shoot. They sat on a bench, side by side but not touching, letting the silence settle in. And it wasn't awkward. It felt comfortable, natural, like they had done it 100 times before. Lena glanced over and noticed Miu rubbing her sleeve lightly, an absent-minded gesture she did when she was anxious. Without thinking twice, Lena reached over gently, covering Miu's hand with her own. Not tight, not dramatic, just enough pressure to say, "You're not alone." Miu froze for a second, startled, then slowly relaxed under the warmth of Lena's hand. She looked at Lena, really looked, and whispered a soft thank you. The kind of thank you that carried weight. The kind that wasn't just gratitude, but trust. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The only sound was the wind moving through the leaves. And in that small pocket of silence, something shifted again. Subtle, unspoken, but deeply felt. Back inside the studio, two interns walked past the monitor where the photos were being reviewed. They gasped when they saw the images, especially the unplanned ones. Within seconds, they were whispering to each other, the kind of whisper that hints at rumors waiting to explode. Do they even know how they look at each other? Is this real? Should we even be seeing this? Word spread quickly among the staff. Not in a malicious way, more in awe, as if they had witnessed something delicate and rare. A connection forming in slow motion. When Lena and Miu finally returned to the main room, conversations abruptly halted, eyes subtly following them as they walked by. The two actresses didn't notice, lost in their quiet bubble. But everyone else noticed everything. A makeup artist whispered to a stylist, "They weren't like this before today, right?" The stylist shook her head. No, something happened. And the truth was undeniable, something had. When the final images were approved and selected for release, the director made one bold decision. He included 2 of the unplanned photos, the ones that captured the raw moment no one was supposed to see. He justified it by saying they represented authentic emotion, but deep down, even he knew why he picked them. They were unforgettable. When the photos went live the next day, the internet went into immediate meltdown. Comments flowed like a flood. What is happening between Lena and Miu? This wasn't acting. Look at their eyes. I've never seen a moment this real. I'm crying and I don't even know why. Their chemistry is unreal. Fans made edits, slow motion shots, GIFs, and analyses. They circled Lena's hand on Miu's arm. They zoomed in on the expression in Miu's eyes. They compared older photos, pointing out how different this looked. More intimate, more vulnerable, more honest. Within hours, hashtags trended. Within a day, articles were written. Within 2 days, people began calling it the moment that changed everything. Meanwhile, Lena and Miu stayed quiet, not denying it, not explaining it, just letting the world wonder. And the world did. The world wondered, analyzed, speculated, and fell deeper into the story they didn't even realize they were living out loud.